this is Christian Lunger again with Geraumt, your podcast for environmental graphic design. And it's actually been a long time since we've been on air with our podcast. So that's why I'm looking forward to have our first podcast in the year 2023. And it's a very interesting one to start with in this year. Um, I will be talking to Svavar Knutur today, who is a folk musician, and he's from Iceland in English. He's a folk musician. He has quite a rich discography, so he has written a lot of songs. And I became aware of Svavar actually via Facebook, via social media, and I was quite interested. He's somebody who is always posting little posts from where he's living, from where his life takes part, and that's when I recognized when I came to his website that he's actually a folk singer, and he has some quite interesting texts on his websites. He's talking about the angst-ridden serenity of long winter nights and the insomnia of 24 hours glaring summer sun. So that really attracted me. And since I'm an environmental graphic designer as well, and we do a lot of work outdoors, and the notion of place is quite important for us, I thought, let's talk to Svavar and see how a musician is influenced by place or is even influencing place. And since Svavar is from Iceland and it seems that his home country has influenced his work, and he's doing a lot of touring, so that might be a very, very interesting conversation. So, Svavar, I'm really happy that this podcast can take place, that you can find time, and especially in the connects now that you're coming to Innsbruck, which I'm really looking forward to. So, welcome, Svavar, to this podcast, and I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Hello, Christian. Well, great to see you and hear you and be part of your podcast. I'm really happy to join you.
We have just talked a little bit before we started the official recording. Could you tell our listeners where you're actually located, where you're coming from?
Yeah, speaking of place, I used to live in Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland, but I always I felt it was a little bit it was not for me. So I moved with my family. We all moved to Akureyri, which is a 20,000 people town in the north of Iceland.
Hmm.
It's called the capital of the north, and it is the capital town of the north of Iceland. And it kind of reminds me of Innsbruck, actually, because it's got mountains on almost every side except for north. So,
Okay.
and even in the north, we have a windbreaker mountain called Kaldbakur or Coldback.
Hmm.
And Kaldbakur is a special mountain because it takes the north wind. So it captures the north wind when it's coming and slows it down and takes a little bit of the snow and ice and rain if it's
Hmm.
coming in from the north. So it's actually a really interesting mountain.
Does that
Mm.
that's probably something that you can feel very intensely during the winter time? Does that have an impact during the summertime as well? This mountain, does it make something with where you're living at?
Yes, the difference between Reykjavik, for example, and Akureyri is that Reykjavik is built on a peninsula.
Hmm.
So everywhere around it is ocean
Hmm.
almost. So so when the wind is blowing, it's always in the summer it's cooling down, and in the winter it's warming up. So it's always a bit wet
Hmm.
in Reykjavik. But in Akureyri, we are surrounded by mountains, so it's much drier and not desert dry, but like just not so much rain all the time. And the wind
Hmm.
is in winter it's cold, and in the summer it's warm. So it's so it's much more accentuated seasons, which I really
Hmm.
like. The seasons are more clear here.
More clear means fresh. Or
No, it means
I think I know what you mean. If it's after a rain, for example, I feel the air is different and you see the things much sharper
no,
sometimes.
yeah. Well, sharper would be what also a way to describe it. The winter is colder, the summers are warmer,
Hmm.
So in Reykjavik, the winter and summer, there's not a big difference, but in Akureyri it's a bigger difference between winter and summer.
Mhm. Um,
And it's really like sheltered by the mountains, and the mountains really make up so much of our environment all
mhm.
around us.
You describe yourself as a folk singer. Um, and I really have to ask because these formulations you had on your website, I think they were very specific on how, at least at how I felt, on how, especially when I listen to your music as well, on how it influences your music. This, if you talk about the angst-ridden serenity of long winter nights, does that mean you're in this part of the world where in the winter you actually get really little sun, but during the summertime you really have very long periods, even 24-hour summer sun time? Is it already that far up north?
Yeah, we have 24-hour days in like for 3 weeks, 4 weeks in the summer, and it's really bright, and the sun just doesn't go down really.
Hmm.
And it's not as charming as you might think. It really, speaking about place, it really disturbs your inner clock.
Okay.
The inner timekeeping of your body, of your mind, and you get confused. The kids don't know how to go to sleep.
Hmm. Hmm.
My children in the summer, like when they are small, and the sun, it just does not get dark, and they are like, no, I don't want to go to sleep because it's not night, and the night just doesn't come for them.
Hmm.
um, but in the winter it gets really, yeah, I mean, we have maybe 2 or 3 hours of light, maybe 4 hours of light
Hmm.
in the darkest part, but it's not completely light, it's more like twilight. And the mountains also block a little bit the sun, because it is so low, and then it's just behind the mountains as well.
Hmm.
So it's very shady in the winter, but that's, I actually like that.
Hmm.
Darkness is a good. Uh, it's very good to be introspective and thinking about issues in the world, and sitting down, lighting a candle, playing a guitar. Darkness is perfect for that. Drinking
Hmm.
some coffee in the morning in the darkness, and or cocoa in the evening, and it's cozy. Like in the darkness, you can always take a blanket and light a candle, and then everybody is having a very nice time.
So if you look at your work as an artist, as a musician,
Hmm.
although you're playing theater as well, I followed your social media posts on the theater piece that you made in Germany, where you participated in Germany. So it's probably not only a musician, but other forms of artistic impressions as well. But how would you say, is the hypothesis correct? That's probably the first question, that your home country, the places where you live and lived, have influenced your style of music and the kind of stories that you're telling?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, environment and the place and environment really affect everything that people go through. I mean, just look at the differences of language.
Mhm.
Um, uh, what words do we use? How do we describe our feelings? You know, if you live in inland, if you live where there is no access to the sea, you don't use the sea to describe how you feel. You use forests and mountains and rivers to describe your emotions. Yeah.
Mhm.
But if you live like Icelanders by the sea, like we really don't live anywhere else in the land because it's uninhabitable. 98% of Iceland is just not. We can't live there because
Mhm.
of mountain, like huge mountains and glaciers and volcanoes and stuff. So we have to live on the coast.
Mhm.
So this affects the language a lot. How we talk about the world, how we talk about our feelings. When we talk about our heart, we talk about the sea, and we talk about wind.
Mhm.
We talk about clouds, and we talk about weather.
And you're using
But
them as a metaphor,
yeah, these are
metaphors.
our metaphors for
Mhm,
speaking
mhm,
about life. But when a person from, for example, let's say middle of America, like in Idaho, they are talking about their feelings. They would never talk about a ship, you know.
mhm,
They would never talk about a storm of waves or something like that.
mhm.
And
Which is
that's then this becomes the clang of the language. This becomes the rhythm of how you speak, and it also affects the melody of how you talk about your life, because the melody of when you talk about things like the
mhm,
sea is much different from the melody that you use when you talk about the forest.
mhm.
Because this word onomatopoeia. It's
No.
onomatopoeia. It's basically a word that sounds like the thing it's describing,
Mhm,
like knock, like knack,
mhm,
uh, like thump or thud or whisper or shout.
mhm.
We have storm. And in Iceland
Yes.
we have lots of these that have to do with water, with weather, and with birds. Rapen. Rapen is an onomatopoeia.
Mhm,
Raven. And even the Latin name of the raven, Corvus corax, is an onomatopoeia. So
mhm.
in almost every language, the raven has a name that is like,
So in
Uh,
your language is actually that the sound certain things make are actually the name as well.
well, it's in every language. Every
Okay.
language has onomatopoeias,
Mhm,
and they are very, very related to places, um, to your environment. So if
mhm,
you live in a forest, forest sounds start to become onomatopoeia. So there's a bird in Australia called kookaburra bird,
mhm.
and that's because it makes the sound kookaburra. you know.
Okay.
And in German, you have lots of onomatopoeias that I don't know, but you might know.
Mhm,
Because they are your onomatopoeias. Because I wouldn't know them because they are
mhm.
not part of my environment. Um, and that's really. But one that we share is Raben. In
Yeah, I know the
German,
Raben.
Raben, and Raben is the sound that the raven makes. Raben, Raben.
I never thought about that. I didn't
And
look at
and
it like
and the
that.
crow, a kra kra.
Yeah,
The crows they make
yeah.
this kra kra. Um, so a lot of bird names are onomatopoeias actually,
Mhm,
and a lot of animal names, and a lot of names that describe wind are onomatopoeias, and sounds in the house like knar knack.
mhm, mhm,
All of these. So these are the ones we share. The people that live in houses, wooden houses, they share onomatopoeias that, like, even different cultures and different languages can share onomatopoeias that have to do with the sound of wood.
mhm,
You know, so I think, yeah, different places create different metaphors and onomatopoeias, and therefore that changes melodies. It has a lot of effect on melodies.
mhm.
And like, because environment really shapes language. For
Are
example,
there
a lot of
kind of
words.
traditional melodies, Icelandic melodies that you use? Like, let's say the American folk singers, they usually have a rich background in bluegrass and this kind of, traditional music. Is there a
Mhm.
form of Icelandic folk music that you're using in your melodies and in your songs as well?
Well, there's a tragic story about that. Most of our folk music was destroyed in.
Okay.
The first part was destroyed when we changed from Catholic to Protestant religion. Then it became forbidden to sing about anything but God,
Mm-hmm.
and all of our, like, songs about love and longing and friendship and stuff like that became illegal, and people could be killed for singing songs like that.
Mm-hmm.
So but then in the 19th century, the nationalist movement in Iceland, they said, "Oh, folk, it's just for it's for these poor, uneducated people. We should have symphonies and theater and real poetry." So they kind of burned out, like they try to throw out all of the folk leftovers, and
Mhm.
so late 20th century we really tried to rediscover some of our folk music, and
Mhm.
there's not much left. But the good thing about folk music is that it is always it can always come back, because people are always creating it,
Mhm.
because it is bound within the language. Is it is the melody of how we speak and sing about our feelings, and
Mhm.
those feelings and that language doesn't change so fast. So when you have a language, you can actually just take the words of that language, describe how you feel, and those words shape a melody.
Mhm.
And that's, I think, even like when I'm listening to old folk songs, um, I hear it. I hear, oh yeah, that's just exactly how I would say these words in
Mhm.
melody. I would. This is the melody these words are asking for. So it is almost like the melody, the folk melody, exists a little bit. Um, it's just out there and just waiting for people to grab it again, because it is built within the language and within how we shape our thoughts and feelings.
Does that mean regarding the melodies that, in many countries, like here in Austria
Mm.
as well, or in Germany, specific regions have a specific music, and if you want to connect to a place, you could actually reach into this potential of local music, be it the old one or the newly interpreted, like dialect music in our region in Tyrol is quite popular again, and all young musicians start doing dialect music or having strong references with dialect music, but in a new interpretation. Is that something that Iceland does not have anymore? Because, as you said, it's actually destroyed. So you have to create your own connections of specific musical disciplines, even or focuses in specific regions on in Ireland. Is that a topic at all?
Yeah, that might be a good topic, but the problem would be that, well, the problem and the opportunity would be that we have just little leftovers of this
Hmm.
old music, like our old songs. And Iceland is so small that it really doesn't have so many regions. And when they were cleaning up the Icelandic language, they made the dialects not something, they didn't want them, so they made them undesirable.
Hmm.
But there are dialects, and they persist. Even
Hmm.
if people try to get them out, they come back, because it's just the way the mountains and the fjords and the weather shape how people talk.
Hmm.
It's a certain squint. It's a certain feeling. It's a certain, like the people that live in the West Fjords and the people that live in the East Fjords.
Hmm.
They experience mornings and evenings differently. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because the sun is over the sea in the evening for one and in the morning for the other.
Hmm.
So one part of the day has a different meaning for one group than the other. And that I love, And when you live in the north of Iceland, the sun is setting in the sea all the time, and in the summer, and it licks the horizon,
It
and
licks
that's
the horizon. That's a nice.
yeah, we say this like the sun is licking the horizon, and
Mhm. That would be the direct translation
yeah, like
from the
yeah,
Icelandic saying.
in a way, yeah. and and that's, just this part, just the fact that one part of the country is facing the sea in a different way can
Hmm.
actually shape how those people perceive
Hmm.
time and the parts of the day. So that's and this shapes how they speak of the
Hmm.
world, you know. And I
The,
love that. And the music coming from these different areas, there's subtle differences.
mhm. From even the different areas in Iceland. So
Yeah.
if you look at modern bands, there's probably more folk musicians in Iceland, and they all found their path in revigorating local music. Is that correct?
Well, we are trying,
Mhm.
But also, we don't want to tell anyone how they should do this, or what is there is no right or wrong way.
Mhm.
So we say, just write what is in your heart. Just sing in Icelandic about what you feel, and that will be right. That
Mhm.
will be your truth and your story, and that will be your melody. As long as you're not writing, we say, think in Icelandic, you know, think about your feelings, express yourself with Icelandic words,
Mhm.
and then you will have an Icelandic melody.
As somebody who is, we've now talked a lot about how your probably birthplace or your living place influences you as a musician and how you look at the world and how you express yourself. You are somebody who is traveling a lot, especially to Germany, and I've seen lately that you have been in Portugal. Does that have an influence on your music as well? It is like moving to other places basically, and getting the influences, like Portugal probably is with the fado. I don't know how close it is on an emotional level regarding folk music. Does that influence your artistic view, your expression in
Yeah,
some way?
extremely. But I would not, yeah. First of all, it gives me perspective, a lot of perspective,
Hmm.
that I can see things from different sides, that I can connect things from different ideas and different ways of seeing the thing. For example, when I was in Portugal and I had been to Spain as well, I suddenly saw a parallel between Portugal and Spain and Sweden and Norway. Well, Norway and Sweden, because Portugal faces the Atlantic and Spain faces the Mediterranean.
Hmm.
And Norway faces the Atlantic and Sweden faces the Baltic. And the Baltic and the Mediterranean are inland seas that are mostly used for trading, you know. But the
Hmm.
Atlantic is a wide sea that is used for exploring and adventure, and it's the unknown. And it gave me this feeling that Portuguese people and Icelanders and Norwegians have a common thread in how we sing and speak melodies and subject matter. And Swedish people and Spanish people have more in common in some ways,
Hmm.
and that shapes, like, for example, Swedish folk music is a lot more playful, a lot more like, you know,
Hmm.
it's much more huttiguttan, you know, like lots of fun melodies and playing, and a little bit expressive and joy and extroverted, you know.
Hmm.
And same with Spanish, it's very glamorous and extravagant, you know, and
Hmm.
full of what's it called, flamboyancy.
Yes.
While Portuguese and Norwegian folk melodies are often darker and more melancholic, you know.
Hmm.
And that was very interesting to me to kind of figure. And that kind of cultures that actually live close to each other have
Yes.
more in common with the cultures far away than each other, because of the aspect, you know, because of where they face and how they are facing, how what they are, what goes out for them,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know. Is it the Atlantic, or is it an inland sea full of trade and neighbors, or is it the Atlantic full of unknowns and um, yeah, and uncertainty?
Hmm.
Now that made me really interested, and it's the same with Scottish and English, like yeah, and Irish music and stuff like that. It's got it's got different flavors depending on whether you are facing the market or facing the frontier, and both
Hmm.
are interesting. Both sides are interesting. It's just one tiny little thing that gives you like a gives you an indication of how amazing just this one little thing can change so much. And then we think, how then do all the other things change, music and language and all these other factors in the environment and in the surroundings and place?
Hmm. We're coming to the end of our podcast, and I just want to mention again, um, because that was one of the reasons we got in contact, that Svavar will be in Innsbruck, in Austria, on the 22nd of
Bäckerei.
April.
At
Hmm?
the Bäckerei.
At the Bäckerei. And I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that concert. So everybody who's interested in the music from Svava, we will put the links to Svava's website in the show notes, plus a link to the Bäckerei. As I said, 22nd of 4th. You probably, as much as I read, is your latest album was Ahoy Side A.
Yeah.
So will there be lots of music from this album, or will you put something together for Innsbruck specifically?
Um, I never know what I'm going to be playing.
Talking about place in that case.
Yeah, yeah. I, I just I go in. I know what song I want to start with.
Hmm.
I know what songs I should end with because I know how to open and close what I want to do.
Hmm.
But everything in the middle is a story that is just for each crowd in each concert. You know.
How will this, just to have a little bit of an insight? How does this story develop? Do you like how you feel that the crowd is how the mood of the crowd is, or do you actually interact with the crowd? How do you do that regarding the development of the story, which I find a really interesting concept?
Well, normally when I'm playing, I play the first song, and it's like you're playing table tennis. You know, you give a serve, and then the crowd either sends the ball left or right or up or down, or you
Okay.
know. And I feel with just with the energy that the crowd is sending. Now we go up a little bit, and then I feel the crowd is sending me another message. You know, through how they responded to that, and it takes me into another direction, and it's a collaborative effort between the audience and me. I
That
think.
that was a nice term, because I'm a service designer, and we're always talking about, okay, what is special on a service? It's collaborative, and I think a concert is such a thing that the beauty of a concert is usually a joint process. So if a musician can trigger the best of the crowd, and the crowd can trigger the best in the musician, I
Yeah,
think the whole evening will be phenomenal.
that's my favorite concerts where I really don't have to think anything about which song to play next because it just comes out because the audience is just so generous and ready to work with me on this. I
Hmm.
think I think the most difficult concerts I ever go to, if I go to a concert, is the where I get the feeling that the artist has a set list that they are just following,
Hmm.
like 13 or 15 songs, and they just plow through the set list because, yeah, we have to promote this new album, and that's why we have to do 8 songs from that. And
Hmm.
no, I mean, no. I, you know, that's that's kind of you're wasting such a valuable resource, which is the love and friendship and charity of the audience and the generosity of the audience to you as an artist, that they want to
Hmm.
give you so many hints and so much feedback.
I like this very appreciative and respectful approach. I think that is the good basis for good relationships in any, let's say, profession or calling. It depends on
Yeah.
how high one want to place whatever he's doing.
Well,
Um,
Christian, I think art and the music is suffering from capitalism, and I know capitalism isn't all bad, but
mhm,
I think capitalism has made music into this specialty field that artists are supposed to be some kind of adored gods
mhm,
or some kind of heroes, and people are supposed to adore them more than they just like the people that are giving them food in the market,
mhm,
but but the truth is, an artist is just the same as everyone else. We are just supposed to be on the floor and being part of what makes a community a good thing,
mhm,
and we are supposed to enable a good cultural, societal, we're supposed to facilitate that.
mhm.
But somehow it has been turned into this quest for stardom, that you're supposed to be adored rather than
Mhm.
appreciate it as just the guy that makes the really good bread, you know.
Mhm.
And it's a good
I know
food.
what you mean.
Yeah, and that's we and a lot of people have lost touch with this, that they don't see this anymore, that this is could be the purpose, and this could be our role, is to facilitate a better society and better community, more
Mhm.
health, a healthier society through singing, through being together and appreciating everyone, social capital building.
Mhm. If you, I think the last two questions I have for you is the ones with the tip for our listeners, a reading or a listening tip.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
there
Well, I
one
have
you
a
could give?
movie.
Hmm?
I have a movie I would love everyone to see.
Yes,
Uh,
which one?
the book I would love everyone to read, I think everyone has already read. It's Mikael Ende's Momo, but
Ah, Momo. Yes,
it is a must-read book for
yes.
everyone because it has such deep philosophy embedded in such a beautiful story.
Hmm.
But a movie very related to Momo, I would say, is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
That
Um,
would actually, if I look at Momo, that would be actually a nice book to make the music to and to all the messages.
yes, indeed, completely. But
um,
I have to say, I watched this movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I have never been. It's a difficult movie, but it's really fun. It's really strong, amazing movie,
hmm.
fun to watch. But it's so heavy with so much content that you have to watch it two or three times just to take it all in. And it felt like getting Sartre, in uh, injection form, like just right in the bloodstream.
It's one of the books I read. It's a book of my youth. I mean, I'm 52 now, so but when I was
Yeah.
young, that was when Momo came out, and a little later the film as well. I enjoyed the book a lot. I think it's quite message heavy.
Yeah, yes, indeed it is, and a very strong story. But yeah, but
um,
I recommend this movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once, with Michael Chow. Michelle Chow. She
okay.
was in this.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one. It's the Oscar nominee for Best Female Actress, isn't it?
Yes, I think so.
That's a very surreal film. I support your idea to go to this film.
It's so good. And it's yeah, Daniels, are the directors. Um, they just you make Michelle Yao, yeah,
Mhm,
and I was so impressed, so
mhm,
completely impressed with the story, with the message, everything.
mhm.
And her husband is my favorite character in the movie, actually.
Oh, that's her husband.
No, the husband of the main
Oh,
character.
you mean the husband of her husband, the actor?
Yeah,
Not the
yeah.
actor is not the husband of her, but
No,
the role.
film. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's existentialism versus nihilism and
Mhm,
absurdism. It's just so amazing to watch, and
mhm.
such a crazy good movie.
The final question,
Yeah.
Sarah. When have you last laughed full-heartedly? That's usually
Well,
our last question.
I think it was yesterday. I mean, I have wonderful children, and my wife is really funny as well. And we laugh a lot in my family. There's a lot of laughter in the house, and many opportunities to laugh.
Mhm.
So I don't think there is ever a shortage of laughter in my life. And it's
I think that's a good story to tell. If you can
yeah,
say that, I think is a
I'm.
positive aspect.
But yeah, it happens at least once a week that I laugh so hard that I get tears in my eyes. And,
Excellent. So in that case, Svava, very many thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you so much.
for your insight in music and plays. I learned a lot, and it's always interesting to talk to somebody who is basically not so focused on working visually, but approaches the whole concept of plays with different points of view. Um, yeah, thanks for your time. And again, I say concert, 22nd of 4th. I will put all the links in the show notes,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
hope we'll see us there.
yeah, I hope so too. I really miss the bakery. It was one of my favorite places to play a couple of years ago before COVID.
Mhm.
So now we're coming back.
Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Christian. And you have a wonderful spring coming up.